What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. It's Thursday, time to go game a game, talk about all the players I'd be starting and sitting this week. First up, tonight's game, 49ers at Rams, 45.5 point total, Rams 8.5 point home favorites. For the 49ers, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Brock Purdy, all going to be out for this one. That leaves Mac Jones at quarterback, throwing to Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, Sky Moore, MVS, and someone they'll probably elevate but not pass to. In most leagues, you can probably just ignore everyone that is not named Christian McCaffrey on the 49ers this week. But for those of you in deeper leagues, I do think one of Kendrick Bourne or Demarcus Robinson is going to have a good game. I would love to get word that Demarcus Robinson is actually going to play a full snap share. And if we do, and we can bet on that, then I do actually think that he's going to be a solid play tonight. If it comes out that he's not going to play a full snap share, I think Bourne is probably the one you'd want to stream. Right now, I mean, I don't think you have to go there and even like a 8, 10, or 12 team league, but I am in a 14 team league with 8 players out or on bye. And so I'll be rolling with Demarcus Robinson tonight, and I don't feel that bad about it. Again, as long as we can assume he's playing like at least 70% of the snaps, he actually is pretty talented. They really like him. They will utilize him. They're not going to give McCaffrey 20 targets. They got to throw to someone, so I think he would actually be an okay play. But again, not someone you have to consider in shallower leagues. On the Rams side, it's a lot easier. Virtually all of their volume flows through only 3 players, so start those 3 players. Puka, Adams, Kyron, all must starts. Yes, they're going to rotate some drives with Corum in there, but you're 8.5 point home favorites. It's a really good spot for the Rams. Kyron still, even with Corum being involved, is someone you have to start every week. And then Puka is probably going to break records this year, and Adams is probably going to score like 20 touchdowns. And then I don't love streaming Stafford. He had a really good game last week, quarterback 15 right now, but typically, it takes an 80-yard touchdown to Tutu. It takes, all of the touchdowns coming through the air. Like, it takes these really big games for Stafford. He's still not someone consistently I'm that excited to stream. Sunday games will again kick off at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So like last week, please make sure you have your roster set the night before, but also wake up before the game starts to confirm your guys are good to go. Jaylen Warren last week was a surprise inactive. I'm not expecting something like that to happen again, but that's what makes it a surprise. You're not expecting it to happen. This week's international game will be between the Vikings and the Browns. It is the lowest total game of the week by a mile at only 36.5 projected points, and the Vikings are 3.5 point favorites, giving the Browns the lowest projected team total on the week. For the Vikings, even as favorites, they're only projected to score 20. So again, very, very low scoring game expected here. That's not great for either side. The Browns also do have the best run defense in the NFL. And so this is a very bad spot for Jordan Mason. Although, again, it helps that they're favorites. They are likely going to be a team that's winning, but it's only favorites by a little bit. So still a possibility that the Browns can do something, but I would say it's pretty likely the Vikings are either tied, barely losing, or have a lead. I don't think the Browns are going to jump out to a huge lead here. This is also a really bad matchup for tight ends. So I'm not really expecting a whole lot from TJ Hawkinson this week. As things stand right now, Jefferson must start any matchup, any quarterback throwing the ball. Play Justin Jefferson. Addison's my running back, or my wide receiver, 32. And then Jordan Mason is my running back, 21. So I think you can play Mason as like that low-end running back too. I think you can play Addison in the flex spot. Neither one are amazing plays. Carson Wentz isn't like an elite quarterback, but I don't think either of them are bad plays this week. I would try not to play TJ Hawkinson, but I suppose if he was the only option you had and you're going down to like the 20th tight end, then sure. But if you were streaming Hawkinson and someone else, I'd maybe lean towards that other player this week. On the Browns side, don't play Wentz. On the Browns side, Dylan Gabriel is expected to make his first start, which is kind of brutal. I thought they'd wait one more week and not have him go against the Vikings in his first start, but here we are. Obviously, do not stream Dylan Gabriel, and even though the matchup is relatively okay, I'm not sure I'd play any of the tight ends. I get the appeal, right? Because Minnesota does funnel away from wide receivers. It's a tough match for wide receivers, so that funnels targets to tight ends. And they're going to need these two because they have Tillman out. They're probably going to be trailing. Rookie quarterbacks tend to lean on their tight ends a little bit more. I'm just somewhat hesitant to play anyone on this offense besides Judkins in Gabriel's first start. Hopefully Gabriel looks good. Hopefully he's better than Flacco, but we don't really know. And so given the possibility that he's bad and the strong possibility that he's not a good quarterback, you don't really want to go all in on the Browns playing the Vikings. Vikings, a top 3 defense in the NFL. So if you're super thin at tight end, I do think it's fine. I think both of them are like mid-range tight end 2s. If you've been using both of them or like one of them, I don't think you have to go away from them this week. And again, the hope is that both of them see, 6 or 7 targets, that the offense remains pass heavy. But we also don't know that. Maybe the offense shifts to be way more run heavy with Gabriel at quarterback. Maybe the total targets comes way down. And even though Tillman is out, it doesn't benefit anyone enough to be viable. So again, I'd like to see it happen for a week before using these guys. But we do know for a fact that Cleveland wants to start their young guys. They want to be getting these rookies more involved. Not only are they now starting rookie quarterback rest of the season, because they'll go to Shador at some point if Gabriel stinks, but they're going to start rookie quarterback rest of the season. They want to feature Judkins on the ground. They want to keep expanding the role for Fannin. They want to get Isaiah Bond a lot more involved, get him more ramped up to be a full-time wide receiver. So if you're going to bet on anyone in this offense, make it one of the rookies because they want to be expanding these guys' role. But I would say this week, play Judkins. If you have to play Fannin, I actually have to play Isaiah Bond in a league. It's a deeper league. I have a ton of people out and on bye. I don't think it's a bad play, but I probably wouldn't want to be doing it. I would prefer if my whole team wasn't injured and on bye, but viable. Again, we have the injury to Tillman. You can play some of these guys. I would just perhaps prefer not to for a lot of them. 1 o'clock games kick off with Cowboys at Jets, 47.5 point total. Cowboys 2.5 point road favorites. For the Cowboys, Pickens went off in his first game without CeeDee Lamb, but I do think there's a little bit more to the story than that. To start the year, he was getting these downfield looks. It was just that all of them ended up being pass interference. And so he was open or he had an opportunity to catch the ball, but when there's PI, you don't get the 40 yards downfield. The offense does, but we don't in fantasy. Last week, the defenders didn't commit pass interference, and so he hit on the downfield looks. Yes, his role expanded, but he was always used in the red zone. He was always being used downfield. It was more so he had okay games, but then 2 or 3 times he'd get pass interference deep downfield, and so it doesn't look as good in the box score. Finally, this last week, sure, the target share increased, but it was more so those looks downfield actually converted instead of turning in to pass interference. So he's going to remain volatile. He's not going to have 102 touchdowns every week, but we very clearly have seen the ceiling now. So I think he needs to be in your starting lineup for whatever weeks that CeeDee Lamb is missing. In fact, I would call all of Javonte Williams, George Pickens, and Ferguson all must starts this week. And if you've been rolling with Dak at quarterback, I would continue to do so. He doesn't project amazingly this week, but he's been playing great. The difference between him and the top end streaming options is fairly marginal. I would not make a change. I would not drop someone to try and play a different quarterback over Dak this week. Dallas does play better at home, and typically I have them for a higher projection at home. They're on the road this week, so that is a slight concern, but they looked really good against a Packers defense that I would consider top 3 in the NFL. Jets, okay defense, but much worse than the Packers. I'd be playing these guys this week, and hopefully we see Jaden Blue activated. When he is activated, he's still not going to have much of a role, but it would be nice to see him activated and get some touches this week. On the Jets side, they get a dream matchup with the worst defense in the league in the Dallas Cowboys. All of Fields, Hall, Garrett Wilson, clear must starts. If you were super desperate, Mason Taylor isn't a bad option. I do think that moving forward, not every week, but on average moving forward, he's going to be their like de facto wide receiver 2, especially if Dallas can pull ahead this week and we force a little bit more of a passive game script from the Jets. I think he can rack up 4, 5, maybe 6 receptions, and that's really all you can ask for a tight end. I wouldn't project 6 receptions, but I think he could pretty easily get to like 3 or 4. He's still only my tight end 20 right now, so you probably do have better options, but he's not like a bad play. I would probably play both of the Cleveland tight ends over him, but again, not a bad play if you had to play him this week. Next up, we have Broncos at Eagles, 43.5 point total, 3.5 point home favorites for the Eagles. On the Broncos side, obviously a bad spot. You are on the road, you are underdogs, you're only projected to score 19.5 points. You're playing a very good defense and an offense on the other side that is fully capable of 10 or 11-minute drives to really limit the plays of the opposing offense. Sutton is the only wide receiver you can trust, but I would play him as a low-end wide receiver too this week. Engram finally got some usage last week. That's encouraging, but I'd like to see it happen again before trusting him. The toughest call is with the running backs. Dobbins does grade out as running back 25 right now. Harvey, running back 32. Great to see Harvey's usage go up last week, and they talked about after the game that they shifted to more of like a drive for drive change up and being like, okay, this is a Dobbins drive. Now this is a Harvey drive. If they continue to do that and they actually make it a split between the two of them, that's going to be very good for Harvey. It does make it so both are more fringe options and neither one of them is a smash play. But the whole point of Harvey was that we don't really think Dobbins can stay healthy all season. And once that happens, if they're trusting him as to be close to a feature back on some of these drives, we know the upside is there. Tyler Bidet will still mix in for that 2-minute stuff, but hopefully eventually that even goes away and they can have that more be RJ Harvey's role. Unfortunately, in this matchup, if they're splitting drives, again, running back 25 and 32, it's not amazing. I don't know that I would want to use Harvey this week, but if they're going to continue splitting drives and he's going to have as many touches as he had last week, that does still have a decent amount of upside. Then for Bo Nix, I mean, he's fine as a streaming option. He went off last week, but that was against the Bengals, not the Eagles. So right now he's projecting as my quarterback 13. I wouldn't be surprised if that move back a little bit from there. But yeah, not a bad play. And I wouldn't again, it's the same thing with Dak. It's like, if you have a quarterback in that general 12 to 18 range and you've been rolling with him every week, for the most part, I would just stick with that guy. If you see someone's projected for half a point better, it's not worth dropping someone on your bench that you like to go get a half a point difference in a projection. That's just not enough of a difference. If your quarterback ends up as the quarterback 25 on a week and the quarterback 10 is available, okay, now we're probably talking about 2 points difference. That might be enough to maybe make a change. And if your quarterback's projecting 25th, there might be some underlying reasons why you may not want to stick with them long term. But if we're just fluctuating that general quarterback 12 to 18 range every week and you want to roll with a guy, just keep rolling with him. Then for the Eagles side, obviously start Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley every week. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith used to be must starts. They are not anymore. They're only grading out as a wide receiver 25 to 30 range right now, with A.J. Brown, of course, being ahead of Devonta Smith. And I'd be fine benching both of them. I'm a little less hesitant to bench A.J. Brown because we know the upside is there. Even last week when he had the dud, he had a 37.25% or 37.5% target share. The problem is it resulted in 4 catchable air yards and only 2 reception for 7 yards. But the point is the underlying volume for A.J. Brown is always going to be there. The question every week will be, do they throw the ball? So in the weeks they throw the ball, A.J. Brown is going to have a great game. But when they don't throw the ball, which seems to be happening half the time this season, he's going to have a bad game. So again, you can bench both of them. And if you think this is one of those games where they run the ball every play, A.J. Brown's not going to have a good game. Devonta Smith not going to have a good game unless they get lucky with a touchdown. But when you run into the 25, 30% of the time that they do throw the ball and you see A.J. Brown have 8 for 100 and a score on your bench, you're going to be like, what the heck was I doing starting this absolute scrub in the flex spot over A.J. Brown? So it's going to be frustrating. I understand that. I don't have A.J. Brown, but if I had him, I probably would be playing him this week. Actually, I do. I have him in Dynasty. I'm definitely playing him in Dynasty. So I'm playing him in the one league that I have him, but in a redraft leagues, I mean, if you have a great wide receiver room, you have 3 top 20 wide receivers and you're super frustrated with A.J. Brown, sure. But for most who, I think you kind of have to just play A.J. Brown each week and hope that at some point he has a couple good games and you can trade him away. And then I would say Dallas Goedert, weird to call him touchdown or bust because in his entire career, he's never scored touchdowns, but scoring them a lot this year. He's my tight end 12 right now. Totally fine to stream him. Next up, we've got Texans at Ravens. Only a 40.5 point total, of course, because of the Lamar Jackson injury. And the Texans are actually 1.5 point road favorites in this game, which is a wild thing to say. The Texans have not been that good this season, and they are 1.5 point road favorites to the Baltimore Ravens. That shows you, number one, the impact of Lamar Jackson, how important he is to a team. But number two, how bad the Ravens defense has been. For the Texans, again, bad Ravens defense. You're still on the road, and your offense hasn't been that good. So it's not like everyone on Houston is amazing. But the Ravens are allowing 33.3 points per game this season compared to the Texans, who are allowing a league low 12.8 points per game. I do think it's a little bit unfair, and I think the narrative that Baltimore has like this complete trash defense has gone a little bit too far. Sure, they've given up 1 million points, but they've played the Bills, the Lions, and the Chiefs. Yeah, you're going to give up a lot of points to the Bills, Lions, and Chiefs, and then they allowed 17 points to the Browns. Like, that's kind of what you expect. You're not expecting any defense to completely shut down these teams. So while the defense has been objectively bad, I'm not saying that they're good. I don't think they're nearly as bad as the Cowboys defense, despite technically allowing more points per game. But yeah, it's a good spot for the Texans. Although, again, 40.5 point total. So it's not like either side is projected to score a lot this week. Nico is the only wide receiver you can trust. That's for sure. I would not play Dalton Schultz. I pretty much never want to stream CJ Stroud. So the real decision here is, what do you do with Woody Marks and Nick Chubb? Right now, I have Woody Marks with running back 27, Chubb at 30. I would love to see one more game of Marks being that lead back before I feel confident that he's completely overtaken Nick Chubb. Could it be game script related last week where they trust Nick Chubb, but when you're winning 26-0, there's no real need to go with him when he's, 100 years old and football age, given the injuries? I don't know. Again, I want to see it happen one more time. I think Woody Marks is clearly the better running back, clearly the one you have to use in passing downs, and should probably be close to featured on this offense, with Chubb getting like 5 to 7 carries every week. That's what I think should happen. But I'm not sold that Woody Marks is all of a sudden this feature back. Also, the spread is 1.5. It is not like they're going to win this game 26-0 like last week. Baltimore, even without Lamar Jackson, is still a good team, is still going to score points, and there's still a possibility the Texans go out there and lose 17-24. That can absolutely happen. This is not the Titans. This is not the best matchup you can have. So Marks is going to look worse than he did last week. So I probably would play him at running back 2, especially if you're a little bit thin and you added him because you need that help. But don't be expecting 119 yards and 2 touchdowns like last week. And do not play Nick Chubb rest of the season. You do not need to even roster him at this point. Then for the Ravens, only 2 that I trust are Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. I do think Cooper Rush will be fine as a backup, but the Texans have an elite defense. I would not be surprised if, Baltimore really struggled in this game. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 17-24 win for Baltimore, but I don't think Baltimore's scoring 30. If I had to guess, they'll probably be in the 17-20 range, and I would assume that Derrick Henry would be the entire offense. The problem is there have been 40 running backs that have more fantasy points than Derrick Henry since week 1, and that list includes the like of Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, Bashaw Tutin, and Tyler Algier. In fact, since week 2, Derrick Henry has 0.1 more points than Miles Sanders and 0.4 more points than Xavier Scott. He's been brutal. He's not scoring fantasy points. He's not involved in the receiving game. And when they start to get down, they use other running backs over him. That's been the case his entire career. But when you're playing on Baltimore last year, where they're barely losing any games, you get a ton of games of 100, 120 yards and multiple scores. But this year, they're 1-3. And after the next 2 weeks and the bye, they might come out 1-5. And so that's why he's not being as good, because he's always been like this throughout his career. He has had some monster games against the Texans. I would never count Derrick Henry out for 150 to score. I would never bench Derrick Henry under any circumstances, but I shouldn't have to tell you the floor is very, very low, especially if they lose this game. I do feel better about Zay. I do think I'd play him at wide receiver 2. I also think Stingley will be on Zay anytime he's on the outside, but Zay Flowers will run probably 40 to 50% of his routes from the slot this week. like Stingley's not going to go into the slot. So when he's in the slot, he's going to have a very high target share. They're probably going to put him in the slot a lot more. They're not a stupid team. Like they're going to be intelligent here and put him in the slot at an elevated rate. So again, I do think that Zay is a good play. You should play him. Wouldn't love either of the tight ends, honestly. Maybe one of them scores, but that's what you're praying for. Like if you play Andrews or Likely, you're just praying one of them scores a touchdown. Next up, we have Giants at Saints, 41.5 point total. Saints 2-point home favorites. For the Giants, the loss of Neighbors is brutal, and it really caps the ceiling of this offense. He was inarguably a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, and so losing that really hurts, especially when you go down from Malik Neighbors to Darius Slayton. Not trying to, say bad things about Slayton, but he's not Malik Neighbors. And so I would love Jackson Dart as a streaming option rest of season and this week if they had Neighbors. I think you can absolutely still stream him, but I'm much less excited now that he's throwing to Wandale and Slayton. With that being said, the Saints are allowing the 3rd most points per game against them. This game is indoors. It's a really good spot for all Giants players. Dart is my quarterback 11 right now. We'll see if it ends up there. It'll probably end up in that like 11 to 14 range, but he's absolutely a fine streaming option because of how mobile he is, and I don't think the hamstring is going to be a problem. Wandale right now, wide receiver 23, could absolutely use him as a bye week fill-in, an injury fill-in. Cam Scatterboo is my running back 14, same exact thing. You got buys, you got injuries. Honestly, like even if you don't, probably just a good play at running back too. I'm less sure about Slayton just because his role was a lot more reduced than I thought it would be to start this year. But my wide receiver 46, if you had a bunch of guys out, you had to roll with him. I do think it's fine. Again, Saints not a good defense. They run very fast on the other side, so you're always live for the opposing team to run a lot of plays. He'll be more volatile than Wandale, but that comes with ceiling. There's a chance Slayton has 2 receptions for 20 yards, but there's also a chance he has 6 for 80 and a touchdown. And if you need someone with that upside, he's not a bad play. On the Saints side, I would say Juwan is a must start if he was 100% healthy. Check his status today on Thursday. I haven't seen the practice report yet on Thursday as of recording this. Check his report there on Friday. See if he's good to go. If he's banged up, I'll probably drop him a little bit in the rankings closer to like the tight end 12 to 14. If he looks like he's 100%, he actually does project very well this week. But again, kind of check the practice reports with him. Then Kamara right now, low end running back 2. Olave, kind of wide receiver 2 to flex play. And Shaheed, more of a pure boom bust flex play. I feel like you're playing Kamara, you're playing Olave, you're just not expecting that big of a game from them. The target share being so low for Kamara is like super annoying. And while Olave does see very heavy volume, most of it is just so close to the line of scrimmage that it's also frustrating seeing like 13 targets go for like 50 yards. I maintain that Shaheed is going to have a blow-up game at some point soon. The problem is predicting it. Right? I think you can always play him in like that second flex spot, maybe flex in a 3 wide receiver league as well. But I'm not like pumped to play any Saints player this week. They all project okay, but it's the Saints. Next up, we have Raiders at Colts, 47.5 point total. Colts 7-point home favorites. For the Raiders, Geno had a brutal game last week, nearly bailed out by Gentry being a superstar, but not quite. Still lost by 1. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of wild. Like, he's a good quarterback. I really think he's a good quarterback. I think that this is a relatively decent system for him. I think he's got great playmakers around him. He's got a 5.5% interception rate on the season, and it was supposed to be a really good matchup for Geno last week. So I'm very surprised that he played as poorly as he did. Bowers is still banged up. Maybe that's playing into it, but yeah, Geno's not playing that well right now. I don't really know if I would stream him. I do think that Bowers, like once he sheds the brace, is going to go back to being a superstar, is going to be incredible in fantasy. You are still playing him every week, but he's probably not going to shed the brace for like 1 to 2 more weeks. So you kind of have to know that he's just not 100% right now. And even if you were 100%, you had a brace on, like the brace still just limits you. So every time we see him go out there with the brace, which will happen this week, you kind of have to limit expectations somewhat. But I'd still call Gentry and Bowers must starts. I'd still call Myers a strong start. The expected points, the target share, the usage, everything is very, very good for Myers. he just hasn't been able to score, and so you can't really have a breakout game unless you score. I do feel like a big game is coming from Jakobi Meyers because, again, the underlying usage is strong. It's just really annoying seeing him project really well every week. You go in there and you're like, is there anything I can dock in the projections? And it's like, no, like this is the expected target share, the expected, catch rate, yards perception, like everything looks like it should be for Meyers. And then he goes out there and he does fine, but it's kind of an underwhelming stat line. So only a strong start for him. He's for sure going to end up projecting as a top 25 wide receiver. It would just be nice to see him have like a 80 and a touchdown sometime soon. But yeah, start those guys and don't start Geno. Don't start anyone else. Then for the Colts side, I would have gotten a much needed win in one of my leagues had AD Mitchell not dropped the ball before scoring last week. But such is life with AD Mitchell. The Raiders are a fairly neutral matchup all around, and the Colts are touchdown home favorites. So this is a very good spot for them. Obviously, play Jonathan Taylor and Warren. I would also say Michael Pittman Jr. deserves to be a must start at this point. And I would honestly say Daniel Jones is a very, very, very strong streaming option. I don't want to call him must start because, if he's only can project as a quarterback like 8 or 9, there's still a lot of quarterbacks that do project ahead of him. But if you don't have one of the elite quarterbacks, Daniel Jones is a very good option every week. But yeah, Pittman, the usage has been great for him. Honestly, one of the more predictable things that we've ever had. I don't know how many times I pointed out that he met his draft season ADP last season while playing through a broken back with league worst quarterback play. So now that his back isn't broken, and he doesn't have the worst quarterback in the league throwing the ball, it was a 100% certainty that he would exceed value as AP. Now, I don't think he's going to score the 13 touchdowns he's on pace for, but they're using him in the red zone. He's clearly their best wide receiver, and he's a great play until he gives us a reason not to play him. And that's just not going to happen. Like, unless they make a change of quarterback, which they're not going to do, Josh Downs is a slot wide receiver. There was never a world where Josh Downs was overtaking Pittman as their lead wide receiver on the outside. Josh Downs is being replaced by Tyler Warren. And so you can't play Downs, you got to play Warren, and you got to play Pittman every week. Final 1 o'clock game is going to be Dolphins at Panthers, 44.5 point total. Dolphins, 1.5 point road favorites. Kind of brutal because the Panthers are really bad this year. For the Dolphins, obviously part of this reason is Tyreek Hill done for the season. So what is already a consolidated offense before this becomes a very, very, very thin target share. Jalen Waddle isn't a lock to go off every week now, but I would say the target share is going to be so secure every week and the upside is going to be so high that you have to play Jalen Waddle every single week at this point. The injury also opens the door for a full snap share for Malik Washington. He was a prospect we really liked in the draft season like last year, but he never really got going. He fell further in the draft. They never kind of utilized him, but he's a player I've always liked. He had a great offseason this year, a great camp. I do think that you could lean on him in a deeper league. I don't know, 8, 10, 12 team leagues. You really need to even consider him, but as things stand right now, he's my wide receiver 48, and I could see a world where he racks up 4, 5, 6 receptions every week. We talked about this in a deep sleeper video maybe like a week or two before the season started, being like, I don't know that Tyreek Hill's going to be on this team end of season. I didn't think it would be a season-ending injury. I thought that he'd be traded away at some point. But we figured if that happened, they trust him. He is their wide receiver too. They want to get him the ball. They will scheme him looks. They will scheme him not only like close to line of scrimmage stuff, but like screen passes. There is a world where he racks up 4, 5, 6 receptions every week. And in PPR leagues, you can just rely on him in the flex spot. I don't know about half PPR. I don't even know if that ends up happening, but he should be rostered in all formats. And he is like a decent upside play moving forward. This week would probably only go there in deeper full PPR leagues until we see it. And then I wouldn't stream Tua and then obviously start Achane. I think Achane is the running back 1 by a mile right now. We'll see. I'll probably have to dock his projection somewhat, but this is an unbelievable spot for Achane to just completely erupt. Obviously, play him. And then if you wanted to stream Darren Waller, you could do it. Just understand the risk. I think he ran 10 routes last week. So don't look at the stat line and be like, wow, he was great. He ran 10 total routes. The thing is, and why you would go after him is, sure, there's no guarantee that role expands, but it probably will. They've been ramping him up from injury. So he's probably going to run more than 10 snaps or routes. But when he's running these routes, they're saving him for the red zone. He's going to be a featured weapon in the red zone for them this season, and that is phenomenal for us in fantasy. Most tight ends, if they run 10 routes, are not even consideration for our roster. But if he's running 10 routes, it's in the red zone. And if he expands to 20 or 30 routes, and now he's getting usage between 20s as well, he's going to be a good play. Not a top 5 play, and still touchdown or bust right now, but should also be rostered in all formats. For the Panthers side, watch the status of Chuba Hubbard. He has a calf injury. His status for this week is up in the air. If he plays, use him as a low-end running back 2. If he misses, then Dowdle probably steps in as a running back 2. You could stream him. And then Trevor Etienne would be viable as like a low-end 3, but that'd be for super deep formats only. Bryce Young right now is grading out pretty well this week, just given how bad the Dolphins defense is. I'm not in love with that. I don't fully trust him. I would definitely prefer to stream Jackson Dart this week, but he's not projecting as that bad of a play. And it's probably a better play if Chuba were to sit, just because they'd probably lean a little bit more pass heavy, especially in the red zone. After them, Ted McMillan remains a must start. I know he hasn't had that nuke yet, but Dolphins, not a good defense. They're a defense I would look to attack. I think he just gets better and better every week. Ted McMillan is going to be a superstar. I would keep playing him. And then Tommy Tremble, assuming that Jatavian Sanders remains out, he's not a bad streaming option. He does have a role in the red zone. He's probably going to rack up 3 or 4 receptions, but he's only my tight end 18 right now, so should be like an okay streaming option, but there are 17 tight ends I would still play over him. 4 o'clock games kick off with Bucs at Seahawks, 44.5 point total. Seahawks, 3.5 point home favorites. For the Bucs, Chris Godwin was ramped up much quicker than I thought he would last week. Like, I thought he'd come out and play 40, 50% of the snaps, increase 5 to 7 to 10% every week, and just slowly ramp him up. Maybe they just kind of had to throw him out there, or maybe he's a lot closer to be 100% than we thought. He played 80% of the snaps. He commanded 10 targets. He only caught 3 for 26, but the underlying metrics weren't that bad. It seems like he's getting open at an okay rate, and it was a very difficult matchup. So if they trusted him to play that many snaps right from the jump, he's already in flex consideration. I don't think you have to be playing him. This is still a pretty brutal matchup. And so I'd like to give it one more week. I'd keep him on the bench spot, see if he can command another 7+ targets, see if his snap share even goes up to 85 or 90%. And if that happens, we'll be very optimistic moving forward. But yeah, I don't know that I would trust him this week. But if you had to play him, again, he had 10 targets last week. And the bigger news is Bucky Irving. If Bucky Irving misses, maybe they do lean more passive, and maybe you do like Godwin a little bit more, but I'll kind of adjust the rankings for that. I'm already projecting Bucky Irving to miss, so where he is right now in the rankings is already factoring that in. Again, my guess is that Bucky's not going to play. That means that Rachaad White would be the lead back. I like Sean Tucker. I think the team likes Sean Tucker, and they're willing to give him touches, but I would still play Rachaad White at running back 2, and Sean Tucker is probably more so like a DFS play and like a GPP. I don't know that he's necessarily someone in an 8, 10, or 12 team league you need to go after. But if you're in a 14 team league, you got buys and injuries, and you're like, Nick, I need a human being to play running back 2, you could play Sean Tucker this week. But again, not a good matchup. Seahawks have a very good defense, and you're on the road in Seattle, which is a very, very bad place for opposing offenses. So overall, play Egbuka as like a low-end wide receiver 2. Play Rachaad White as a running back 2. If you had to use Godwin in the flex spot, okay. If you had to play Sean Tucker in a deep league, okay. Baker, probably someone I would bench. Baker always surprises me, always plays better than you're imagining he will. The offensive line is crumbling. The pass catchers are injured. You're playing a bad defense in a difficult environment, and he'll still probably go out there, have 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. But personally, I probably wouldn't play Baker this week. Then for the Seahawks, JSN, auto start every week. Cooper Kupp, low-end flex play if you really need him, better in full PPR. Toughest calls with the running backs. Ken Walker has been infinitely better than Charbonnet this season, but Charbonnet has the goal line carries, which really hurts the value of Walker, but also makes it so Charbonnet's been so bad you can't use him, but he gets these random touchdowns. And so it's Walker's been good. He's been a lot better than Charbonnet. The problem is if he's getting all his work between the 20s and it comes off the field and they give Charbonnet the touchdown, can you really play either one of them? Also, Tampa Bay has been a pass funnel for years. It's probably been like 5 years that they've been a clear pass funnel. It remains true this season. No team limits yards per carry running backs more. No team limits total running back rush attempts more. Teams do not choose to run on the Bucs because when they do so, they're really, really inefficient. So you could play Ken Walker if you had to. You could play Charbonnet if you were praying for a touchdown. Ideally, you're benching both of them this week. I would not play Sam Darnold either. I mean, you can stream him, and if you really think to go pass heavy, you can. It's just I don't like playing Sam Darnold because he's not going to run the ball, and it's not like he's going to go out there and have 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. So you're just really crossing your fingers. He has like 250 and 2, and there are just better options. He'll project okay, but I don't know. I think you can stream him, but I wouldn't want to. And then if you were desperate in a very deep league or like a tight end premium league, Elijah Arroyo remains interesting. I would like to see a couple more weeks of him like ramp up in the snaps, ramp up in the usage. So probably wouldn't play him, but I would definitely watch and see if the role expands. Next up, we have Titans at Cardinals, 42-point total. Cardinals, 7.5-point home favorites. For the Titans, I think Spears will miss one more week before returning next week. So we do get Tony Pollard with one more week as a top 3 featured running back in the NFL. Arizona is a strong matchup for running backs, so I do think you can play Pollard as a running back too this week if you haven't been able to trade him away, but I would really try and trade Tony Pollard away. Aside from that, though, I think you're benching everyone. Like, Alec is interesting to me long term. I think theoretically you could play him or Ridley, but I really wouldn't want to. I got to see better performances from the Titans before I trust any of these guys. It's really just Pollard or bust from the Titans for me. Then for the Cardinals, not only is James Conner out, but now Trey Benson is on IR. Not great. 3 running back rotation now between DeMercado, Michael Carter, and Bam Knight. My current assumption is that Bam Knight is going to mix in for like a few carries here and there, but will be the distant third running back. Maybe he gets like 3 or 4 rush attempts and no targets, and it's mostly Michael Carter and Amari DeMercado. Most people are assuming that Michael Carter will be the more traditional lead back, that DeMercado will kind of maintain a similar role that he had last week, which was, clear, long, like 3rd and 15 kind of stuff, like long down and distance, clear passing downs, 2-minute back, like things like that, where it's a clear passing situation. They'd play him, and that Michael Carter will kind of overtake the role for Trey Benson. I don't think it's as cut and dry as that. Like, I think they trusted Trey Benson to have that role, and that I don't think they view Michael Carter in the same way. So I think it's much closer to 50-50 than people are projecting. If they already trusted DeMercado on passing downs over Trey Benson, they're probably going to continue that with Michael Carter. And if he just mixes in a little bit more on early downs, you've got much more 50-50 split, and you've got the guy, DeMercado, that's going to be taking the passing situation. So it's probably just going to come down to who's on the field when they get into the red zone. I don't think they're easily going to just switch it out and be like, oh, it's always Carter or always DeMercado. I just think it's going to be who's on the field when they get there. So I think you can play both of them as low-end running back 2s. I would love to get some sort of concrete report on the split, and I do think we'll get that. Unfortunately, it's a 4 p.m. game, so that could come, after 1 o'clock. But my guess is that sometime on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, something comes out about the expected split for this backfield that we can trust a little bit more, and I'll update the projections accordingly. But yeah, because we don't know right now, I'm projecting them similarly, but I don't have a super strong take as to who you should be playing. Right now, it seems like people are leaning towards Michael Carter. Again, I think it's closer to 50-50, and if anything, I think it leans DeMercado, but I'll adjust the rankings accordingly. Aside from the ground game, start Kyler, start Marv, and start Trey McBride. The loss of these 2 running backs makes it a lot more likely that they lean more pass heavy, not only between the 20s, but in the red zone as well. I don't think they trust Amari DeMercado and Michael Carter as much as they trusted James Conner. So it's more likely when they get to like the 5 or 7 yard line that they go play action than they would go run heavy as they did before. Next up, we've got Commanders at Chargers, 48-point total. Chargers, 2.5-point home favorites. For the Commanders, Jaden Daniels is expected back, which is obviously a big boost for the offense. I don't think we get Terry McLaurin back this week, though, so that's obviously a negative. We also got a decent report on the team's plans at running back moving forward. It does seem like they view JCM as their clear best running back and that they want to continue ramping him up. That doesn't mean that, this week he goes out there and has an 80% snap share. That's not going to happen. But they want to continue ramping him up, continue expanding his role moving forward. I don't think he'll ever be an elite pass catcher, but it seems like to me from weeks like 10 on, second half of the season, double-digit weeks, that they want to shift more work over to him, to have him be kind of the clear running back one on this team. And I think from that point on, he will be a weekly running back two for us in fantasy. So we're not quite there yet, but it does seem like it's coming. So be patient with Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Be patient with him, keep him on your bench, or play him this week. He's only running back 29 right now, but that's not a bad play at running back 2 if you needed to. In Dynasty, I do. Again, I have a ton of buys and injury. I need to be playing him this week in that second flex spot, but I would say, do so if you have buys and injuries. But he's playable. I would say for the Commanders, again, play Daniels. They cleared him. He's good to go. Play him. Play Deebo Samuel. Stream Ertz, he's a fine streaming option, tight end 11 right now, and then maybe JCM if you need him. On the Chargers side, fairly straightforward. Justin Herbert, Amarian Hampton, clear auto starts every week. And at this point, I never thought I'd say this, but Quentin Johnston is also a clear must start every week. Keenan Allen is a wide receiver too, and Ladd McConkey is flex viable. I am genuinely shocked at how little Ladd is being used, but it really just comes down to Quentin Johnston has broken out this season, and Herbert already has a really strong connection with Keenan Allen. I do still believe that Ladd is going to go off at some point. He's going to have some really high-end games, and that you should still be playing him the flex spot if you have him, but he is absolutely not going to pay off his third-round ADP from this year. And then keep watching Gadsden. Don't play him, obviously, yet, but it's nice to see the role expanding. I don't trust him yet, but if the role continues to expand, if he ever becomes that clear tight end one, it'll be exciting upside for him in fantasy. But again, right now, not even necessarily need to add him. Just continue watching the role, see if it expands. Final 4 o'clock game is going to be Lions at Bengals. Should have been an epic matchup, but with no Burrow, total is still 49.5, but Lions are 10.5 point road favorites. Pretty embarrassing for the Lions. Play everyone. Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Laporta, all should be in starting lineups. J-Mo and Monty, I would say are still strong starts. I know both of them have had duds recently, but this is a much better spot for David Montgomery. It is super likely he scores a touchdown this weekend. And also, the usage for J-Mo is there. He just missed last week. That's going to happen. That's kind of what life is like when you have Jameson Williams. He's going to have these dud games and also games with 100 and a touchdown. I think you just play him in the flex every week, and this is a good spot for him. Then for the Bengals, I know it's been super frustrating rostering these guys without Joe Burrow, but to be fair, they've played the Vikings and the Broncos. Those are 2 top 3 defenses in the NFL. Even Joe Burrow probably would have had one really bad game against those 2 matchups. It wouldn't have been as bad as it has been, but I don't think that Jake Browning is a horrible quarterback that can't possibly support these guys. When he came in that first game, he peppered Jamar Chase with targets, and Jamar Chase had 1 million receptions for a ton of yards and I believe a touchdown as well. So the sky is falling. It for sure is falling, but it's not the end of the world yet, we'll say. I also think that long term, if Browning continues to play this bad, maybe he's just awful and it's not even the matchups, he continues playing horribly, they're going to make a trade. They are still 2-2. As long as they don't go 0-4 over the next month, if they can win a couple of these games, they need to stay in it because technically Burrow can come back. Burrow's not coming back if they're 2-10 when he can come back. So they know they have to win in the short term. They have publicly stated that they're behind Browning. Again, if he continues to look awful, they might make a trade. It could be for Winston, Cousins, Russell Wilson, Flacco. I don't know. Maybe some of those are unrealistic. If it's Jameis Winston, my goodness, I'm going to be so excited. Fantasy upside of this offense is going to be crazy. But even if it's just Kirk Cousins, that's stable. And that will be enough to have these guys come back to be good. And maybe Jake Browning is still fine. Again, it's been 2 brutal matchups. I think you still kind of play some of these guys. So still play Jamar Chase. I think you're still playing Chase Brown at running back 2. The usage is there. He is the 4th most featured running back in the NFL this season. It just doesn't matter much when you run 43 plays like they had last week. It could happen again. They're playing another really good offense that could get up. run the ball a ton and limit plays for the Bengals. But at home against a weaker defense, not a weak defense, a weaker, I think you can still play these guys. T's a tough one to trust, but I have him in Dynasty. I'm playing him this week at, I think, the flex spot. But yeah, wide receiver 33, absolutely flex viable. But I would say T. Higgins is definitely not a must start the way that I think Chase is. And I think Chase Brown should be played at 2, running back 2. Sunday night game, pretty decent one, actually. Patriots at Bills, 49.5 point total. Bills, 8.5 point home favorites. For the Patriots, Stephon Diggs had his breakout game last week. He hit a 63% snap share. He caught 6 of 7 targets for 101 yards. By far his highest yards per reception on the season. By far his best game on the season. I'm hoping the usage sticks moving forward. I'm hoping that he's getting healthier and healthier, that he's going to bump up to a 70, 75, 80% snap share, and we can trust him moving forward. I think right now he does make for a strong flex play in a revenge matchup against Buffalo. It's not a revenge game, but a revenge game. They're also underdogs, right? I mean, they threw the ball, 17 times last week? I mean, think about that for Stephon Diggs. I think they were 14 of 17 passing because they scored 42 points. They didn't need to throw the ball. They were playing the Panthers. And he had 6 catches on 7 targets. Like, that is a monster share of the workload. If they have to drop back, and they're willing to, 40 times this week, doesn't need that high of a target share to maintain that usage. So I think you're playing Stephon Diggs in all formats this weekend. I think you're playing Hunter Henry in all formats. He's been reliable. He's been great and has a great role in the red zone. I think you're playing Drake May in all formats this week. Like, you're playing all 3 of those guys. The toughest call is what to do with the Patriots running backs. The Panthers are a top 3 matchup for running backs. You could argue that they're the number 1 matchup overall. It's tough between them and the Titans, but it's a great matchup last week. So they played well. Not as good of a matchup this week, but it's a good matchup if they trail and they're going to throw to these guys. The problem is, who's going to score a touchdown? Who's going to be in the red zone? It's completely random. Who's going to have the receptions? It's completely random. Right now, I have Henderson as my running back 25, Stevenson at 28. Who knows? I would love for them to start Henderson a little bit more and give him more usage, not only on the ground, but through the air, because he's such a good pass catcher, such an explosive player. He hasn't hit for that explosive play yet, but it is coming. But we'll see. I think both of them are just, low-end running back 2s, and you're just really crossing your fingers that they're the running back that decide to use the goal line this week. Then on the Bills side, obviously, Allen, obviously, James Cook are must starts. Dalton Kincaid, pretty strong option at tight end, a lot higher red zone usage this season than we're used to, so I would play him. He's my tight end 9 right now. The wide receivers are similar to always. You're hoping to get the one that scores a touchdown. I'll say this week we kind of know a little bit more. Christian Gonzalez is almost definitely going to shadow Keon Coleman, so Keon probably not going to win that matchup. So if you ever had a week where you could pick between the 2 of them, it's this week, and it's probably Shakir. I don't think that makes Shakir a must start, but it makes him a pretty good play this week. Final game of the week, Monday Night Football, Chiefs at Jaguars, 46.5 point total. Chiefs, 3.5 point road favorites. For the Chiefs, this offense looked a million times better with Xavier Worthy back, which makes you really excited for what it could be when Rice is there as well. Like, when you add Rice to this offense too, maybe we are going to go back to the old good days with Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, though, clear must start. I would say Worthy is as well. I was a little scared last week, just not really knowing what the snap share would be, not really knowing how they would protect him. He was featured. He had a great role. It's obviously not great knowing that he's one big hit away from being done for the year, but I think you have to just cross your fingers that he stays healthy every week and just put him into your starting lineup and not question it. Aside from those 2, though, really no one's a must start. Like, Kelsey is fine, but the usage is fairly mediocre. You could play your favorite running back on this group, but honestly, they're trying to mix Brashard Smith in more each week, get him ramped up more and more, and that's going to directly impact the already non-existent, receiving role for Pacheco and Hunt. So you could cross your fingers, hope one of them scores a touchdown, but I don't think you can play any of these running backs long term. It'd be nice to be excited about Brashard Smith. I still don't think he overtakes much of that early down role. But yeah, it's a 3-running back committee and a team that throws the ball a ton. I really wouldn't play any of these running backs. So ideally, start Mahomes, start Worthy. If you had to play Kelsey, do it. But yeah, I'm excited about this team once Rice is back, and it's only in a couple weeks. Then for the Jaguars side, this is not a good matchup, but it's not a horrible matchup. Like, the Chiefs are just a very well-coached defense, and so They're not going to give up huge plays. They're not going to make mistakes. And so you kind of have to just take what's there. I don't know that I trust Trevor Lawrence to really like take what's there, but is what it is. I would say everyone is just a little bit worse than normal. So if normally ETN is an auto start for you at running back 2, he's a low run running back 2 this week. If normally Brian Thomas Jr. is an auto start at wide receiver 2, it's normally 1, but this year it seems like it's going to be wide receiver 2. Now he's more of a flex play this week. If you've been streaming Strange, I'd probably say just keep doing it. He's a high-end tight end 2 this week. I would not stream Trevor Lawrence. I would not try and stream Bayshal Tutin. I would really just stick to their core of ETN, Brian Thomas Jr., and Strange if you've been streaming Strange. I wouldn't go out this week and be like, gotta replace my tight end with Strange. But if you've been using him, continue using him this week. So that is a look at every team this week. The rankings will, of course, change on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. So make sure you check the updated rankings on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And now you can view it on the app as well, which I strongly recommend. It is much easier to just pull out your phone, go to the app, and very easily see what the rankings are. So if you have access, definitely use the app instead of like pulling out your phone, logging into the browser, finding the rankings page. It's so much harder to do that than just looking on the app and seeing who's ranked higher. And it won't crash. If everyone goes to the site at the same time, it's going to crash. If everyone uses the app, it will not. So please leave a like if you are still here. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. But I'll see you tomorrow to go to my favorite underdog plays for week 5.